against what we're seeing. I want to get Claire in and John Heilman. We now know that the special counsel's office complained at least 4 times in the days immediately following Attorney General William Barr's March 24th summary letter on the Mueller report. According to Robert Mueller's March 27th letter to Barr, released yesterday after disclosure in the Washington Post, Mueller's team communicated its concern on the morning of March 25th, followed up with a letter to DOJ enclosing suggested redactions for immediate public release. 2 days later, Mueller sent another letter to Barr and followed by a phone call with Barr on March 28th. And while it is unknown what else was communicated in the time that followed, this all occurred before Barr's testimony 3 weeks ago, where he said he did not know of any concerns from Mueller's team.
That's a lie, and I'm sorry.
And,
a lot of federal judges would consider that to be perjury.
That lie was something Democrats pressed him on yesterday.
Why did you say you were not aware of concerns when weeks before your testimony, Mr. Mueller had expressed concerns to you? I mean, that's a fairly simple.
Well, I answered a question, and the question was relating to unidentified members who were expressing frustration over the accuracy relating to findings. I don't know what that refers to at all. I talked directly to Bob Mueller, not members of his team. I talked directly to Bob, and Bob told me that he did not have objections to the accuracy.
Attorneys don't put things in writing unless they're pretty serious about them. You couldn't recall that when Congressman Crist asked you that question a few days later?
No, I'm saying that this was the March 24th letter stated that Bob Mueller did not reach a conclusion on obstruction. And it had the language in there about not exonerating the president. My view of events was that there was a lot of criticism of the special counsel for the ensuing few days. And on Thursday, I got this letter. The letter's a bit snitty, and I think it was probably written by one of his staff people.
Would you concede that you had an opportunity to make this letter public on April 4th when Representative Crist asked you a very related question?
I don't know what you mean by related question. It seems to me to be a very different question.
I can't even follow that down the road. Boy, that's some masterful hair splitting.
Did anyone, either you or anyone on your staff, memorialize your conversation with Robert Mueller?
Yes.
Who did that?
There were notes taken of the call.
May we have those notes?
No.
Why not?
Why should you have them?
Oh, my God.
That's just, again,
Claire McCaskill.
The contempt, just the utter contempt that man has for any oversight whatsoever. He is a dictator's lawyer. Like, that guy could go to Turkey right now or Russia and would fit right in. It's incredible, Mika.
Claire, how would you characterize what you just saw?
Well, first of all, he played rope-a-dope all day. He was wiggling, he was zigging, he was zagging. It was so obvious. I just wish a jury was listening to this guy all day, because whatever he was charged with, they would have convicted him, because he was clearly evasive, clearly, as Sheldon said, splitting hairs. But the thing I got to get off my chest, because my hair's on fire about this, you've got Harvard and Yale educated Republican lawyers on the U.S. Senate Judiciary Committee, and they sat there and listened to the Attorney General of the United States say, President, if he feels an investigation is unfair, can shut it down. That's banana republic stuff. That is North Korea. That is Russia. That is China. What separates us from the rest of the world, and those guys know it, is our respect for the rule of law. And this guy is trampling all over it.
That does appear to be America right now.
It's just amazing to me. Remember all the brouhaha about Bill Clinton getting on the Attorney General's plane for 15 minutes? This guy clearly is being told by the White House who to investigate. This guy clearly thinks it's okay for the President of the United States to fire special counsel. It is crazy. And the fact that none of those Republican senators, none of them had the courage to say, wait a minute. Now, wait a minute. Aren't we going too far here? It's disgusting.
What really is, and John Heilman, you could tell the Republican senators that were up for election, they tried to talk about Russia. They tried to stay away from just how corrupt this Attorney General was. But Claire brings up a great point. A lot of these Republicans on the Judiciary Committee went to some of the best law schools in America, and yet they're sitting there and looking at one obvious abuse after another and just remaining quiet. Instead, are talking about texts between two FBI agents as if they have never texted stuff between themselves that they would not want publicized all across America. So the question is, what do Democrats do about this? What does Nancy Pelosi do about it? What does the House of Representatives do about William Barr?
Well, I think, Joe, to start with, I mean, you've got a number of cases here where it appears, as you pointed out yesterday, that the Attorney General perjured himself in front of Congress on his previous occasions of testimony. That the revelation of the Mueller letter now makes that clear. It appears yesterday that he potentially perjured himself again on some of those questions, and it does lead back to this matter of the notes related to his call with Bob Mueller. The answer to the question of why he should have to turn over those records to Senator Blumenthal or to the Senate or to the House if they want them. I believe the Federal Records Act of 1950 probably speaks pretty clearly to those now being public property, and they should have to be turned over. And I think Congress can probably.
So John, let me cut to the chase here.
Yeah.
I understand, and I have suggested that it would be a fool's errand to impeach Donald Trump. Donald Trump was elected by the people.
I'm getting there.
And he will be elected or kicked out by the people in a year and a half or so. William Barr was not elected by the people. He was chosen by Donald Trump for corrupt purposes. Why can't Nancy Pelosi and the Democratic House of Representatives begin what would be proper impeachment proceedings against him after they get all the evidence together of all of the perjury that we already know out in the open that he's done, when in fact that would not damage them politically, but in fact might actually show that the rule of law still matters for at least one chamber on Capitol Hill.
Well, I think that's one place we're headed, and that was kind of what I was getting to, Joe. I think you have grounds now, once you start to accumulate that evidence, which what I think the House and the Senate should try to do. You have grounds for impeachment, I think, of the Attorney General beyond calling for his resignation, which isn't going to come. I think that's a thing, to your point about the politics of it, where Democrats are rightly concerned about what the political assets and liabilities of pursuing impeachment against Donald Trump would be. But I think in the case of the Attorney General, they could go ahead on those grounds. They grounds for them, I think, now, again, once you've accumulated the evidence. And I think it's something that Democrats are going to have to start thinking about. As you suggest, the other thing, obviously, that they need to do is try to make a full court press to get Bob Mueller up there in front of Congress, because that now, the Attorney General, I would say that the House and Senate are beyond the question of impeaching him. They should be done with him. There's not another environment in which it would make any sense to have him testify. We know what he's going to do. He acts as a political lackey for the president, and he lies demonstrably under oath. So bring him up to lie, obfuscate, split hairs, and not provide any information of value doesn't seem to me to be a valuable endeavor anymore. Again, move on him. On an impeachment front, try to get him out of office. That's one thing. But the most important thing right now is the American people need to hear from Bob Mueller. And there is the Attorney General yesterday again said that he had no objections to Bob Mueller, who remains still an employee of the Justice Department for these purposes. He says he has no objection to Bob Mueller testifying. Right now, the Justice Department has not yet made a date available. But I got to say, turning up the political pressure on the Trump administration to make Bob Mueller available and get him up on Capitol Hill to hear his side of things, I think is paramount at this point.